not know the first thing about what secular humanism is, you should read the secular humanist manifestos, because what happened in Russia, in communist countries, was an institution of a religious-like structure centered around an individual and forced atheism, none of which is consistent with humanism.
Your background, it's pretty earthy. How do you connect that with your current political perspective? You said that you became disillusioned with socialism.
I became disillusioned
You'll need a
with
top-notch team to win this one.
In general.
Yeah, definitely. And that's certainly not something that's changed. I mean, I don't like
Open your eyes. Reality is but an illusion.
Look at it this way. All right. Women are much more likely to try to commit suicide. And men are much more likely to kill themselves. And the reason for that is that men use lethal force, and women don't.
All those crises I quietly put out, you have no idea.
I was viewed as
30 seconds
unseemly
before you
by the
attack.
conservative
Get
center.
ready.
Because the conservative way of doing things, it's not to go set up a card table. It was to speak properly.
Yeah.
To go to Stanford.
I'm not sure I feel
and to get the
comfortable
highest possible
divulging that
education.
information
And what
without
I
first
was
understanding
unknowingly on the
why.
cutting edge of was something you mentioned earlier, is that conservatives have now become low trust of institutions, and liberals have become high trust of
Battle
institutions.
starts in 5.
Whereas liberals are the ones that will defend the
3,
FDA, and they'll
2,
defend the CDC,
1.
and they'll defend Pfizer, and they'll defend the Intel.
That's defending Pfizer. That's really.
But they will, because they're high trust of
Because
institutions.
there's no one more trustworthy from a leftist perspective than
But they find themselves defending institutions. In the 1960s, they were low trust of institutions. Don't send us to war. There is. Whereas today, actually, and I was on the cutting edge of this, was in 2012, 2013, 2014, conservatives were still on the high trust of institutions.
Okay, so let me rephrase that slightly.
Please, yeah.
Well, because
You understand what I'm trying to
I do. Well, there's a real conundrum there, because a conservative with low trust in institutions is like an oxymoron. Well, but
we're trying to conserve something institutions have destroyed.
Well, okay, that's the thing. So imagine that there's a hierarchy of institutions. There's the fringe of the institution that's pretty exploratory. You can move into the center that's more conservative. Then you can move right to the bottom, which is, well, what? Well, I would say it's religious, fundamental. Like, as you move towards the core,
that's right.
You move towards what's more religious. And so the conservative stance isn't anti-institution. It's a stance that knows that, you know, in the story of Moses, when Moses goes off to get the commandments, so he's the pipeline to God, right? He leaves his brother in charge, Aaron.
They have a rave party.
That's exactly right. They make this golden calf, which is a materialistic object, and they dance naked in the streets and have an orgy. And that's what happens to the political when it's detached from the state. Okay, so it isn't.
Tremble before mass!
Know that the institutions no longer serve the purpose for which they were established. Chartered, exactly. And they're objecting, and that's happening everywhere. It's happening. That's part of this radical secularization.
Yes.
It's not just secularization. There should be a separation between church and state, let's say. It's not that the institutions have been secular, it's that they've turned 180 degrees from their original orientation and are now rampaging as madly as possible in the other direction. So the universities are no longer the fortress walls against the barbarians. They're actually the voice of the barbarians against demonstrations. Exactly. Okay, so but you got to get that terminology. Assemble! It's very dangerous because then they become indistinguishable from the radicals. So it isn't that. It's a return to the sorts of things we talked about at the beginning, like Wilberforce. That's right. Those foundational principles. Yeah. And you're going to campus and saying, you need to be right. Which they definitely have. The universities cannot see. No, I've been working very the bricks
Judge, jury, executioner!
I think they're
dominated by people who are aiming in the wrong direction. So what does that mean? Okay, so let's continue practically. So tell me what happens the first time at Wisconsin.
Conversation every 15 minutes. A couple kids were interested. Found a chapter leader.
Oh, you found a chapter.
Yeah,
Okay, so that was success.
So it was a success. Found a
Magneto
couple groups
raised
of
me
people,
to never
and
stop
we started the
fighting
group.
for what
And then I
believe
did
is
it
right.
at Marquette University because I had a friend that went there.
And so you walked away from that. How did you feel when you
Exhilarated.
walked? You did.
Because then I was able to go back to 2 or 3 people giving us money.
And say,
And they gave us $500. I said, now we have a chapter. We can, and they said, okay, well, let us know how it goes. Proof of concept.
right.
So then we did it at Marquette, and we did it in Worcester, Illinois. We did it
So
in
you went from 0 to 1,
And
which
that-
is a huge
It was
leap.
a huge lift.
Huge leap.
Because getting that second chapter was so much easier than
Of course. 0 to 1 is the first customer is impossible.
And then
the second one's hard.
it was one of the most fulfilling days in USA history.
Right. Okay.
Was being able to get a singular chapter.
Right. Of course. That's the one that's best unlike. Your first sale is by far.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Very similar situation, but it was also a friend of somebody in high school, and they were private schools, so it's a little harder to do typical outreach, but they applied for a permit in like the student center, and same sort of thing.
So you were permitted from the beginning as well.
Well, in UA naturally they don't care as much about the public spaces. Any individual can walk in.
Right. Okay.
But Marquette, I had a friend that I went to high school with. Similar sort of thing, and he said, I sat there for 2 hours. That was the time we were here. Because for me, I was trying to build the semblance of something, a real and boy was it.
Yeah.
But it was never disheartening because I had nothing to lose. You have to understand, I'm an 18, 19-year-old kid.
Right.
It's not like I'm mortgaging the house. It's not like I'm two kids. Yeah. So there's such low downside and it's hard to limit that stuff.
Well, that's the entrepreneur.
And it was such an adventure because camping I've never been to, talking to a bunch of kids, you're almost having verbal combat, which is very entertaining.
Well, and imagine too that it must have been heartening to you as well to see that you could hold your own.
Exactly, and so it's a really important point. Here I am as a kid that didn't go to college, thinking, do I really have the intellectual capacity to joust with kids that are learning all day long?
Yeah, right.
I realized they're not.
Yeah.
You see, I was reading von Mises and Rothbard before I came across you.
Yeah.
Hayek, Milton Friedman. Very libertarian economics was my baseline foundational philosophy. A lot of reasons for that. Very, very interesting. Tons of profound insights, some of which don't, I think, play out very well in the material world. But so I would encounter kids on campuses who professed studying economics, and they didn't know very much.
Right.
And I realized, I said, well, there's a disconnect. They're borrowing money to go learn about things that I actually have a greater mastery of because I was...
You can learn a lot if you read the right books.
Oh, and in my idle time, I became obsessed with being proficient
Gonna
and
have to play
understanding
X-Men and
economics. That was kind of my entry.
Oh, yeah, I see.
And so you have to remember, 2013...
You know that
Make way
Burning
for the
Bush
King
story?
of Tea.
Oh, that's Moses'
Galaxy,
by the
sure.
way. So the
Actually,
Burning
it's
Bush
Exodus
moment,
3.
30 seconds
Yeah.
before
Burning
you
Bush
attack.
moment
Get
happens
ready.
when Moses goes off the beaten path. He's a shepherd. Right, so a good man.
You're a shooter
Wolves and
like
lions
me.
at bay.
There's no shooter like
He's got
me,
that
buddy.
mastery. And then
Never
something
figured
attracts
I'd have
his
something
attention.
in common with a
And
talking
he takes it seriously. And that's what transforms him. So you said you did that with economics.
Yeah, and
So-
Moses said, Hanani, here I am. Yeah, at that moment of the call of God.
Right,
Battle starts
exactly,
in
exactly.
five,
And so
four,
this is
It's a repeated
3,
theme throughout the scriptures,
2,
Hanani, yes.
1.
Hanani.
Which is,
All you need to
here
do
I
is
am.
capture
So you
the
remember
mission area.
in the
Got
most...
it?
Right, so he's making himself
Yes,
available.
but remember, Abraham said that with the binding of Isaac when God
the
called
same
him,
phrase.
here I am, and the call of Samuel, here I am, for example. So that phrase, here I am, Hanani, is repeated about 7 times throughout the Old Testament.
And you have to spell it.
But it's here I am, it's the English translation.
Right, so it's like
I am yours, mold me. I am yours.
That's like the mission impossible. Your assignment is to choose to accept.
Exactly. but it's a very powerful Hebrew word. Here I am.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Full surrender. You're perfect.
There's a pattern that's established in that burning bush story. Because the burning bush is something living.
Yes, but it doesn't consume it, which is what's so amazing.
Well, that's life. Life metabolizes. Life burns, but without being consumed. That's the secret of life, right? So that the burning bush is life most deeply apprehended. And Moses is being a shepherd. He's near Mount Sinai, Horeb, which is where heaven meets earth.
Behold the God of Thunder!
Another seriously gets to the bottom of it. So the idea is something like, if you watch for adventure and opportunity, if you watch for the pathway, something will grip your attention and it'll tell you, you'll be obsessed by it. When you take that obsession seriously, you get to the bottom of it. Okay, so
This is real firepower!
It actually brought me back to my Christian upbringing and roots.
which is, well, that's what happens to Moses, because when he gets to the bottom of things, it's the voice of the spirit of his ancestors, right? It's the
Because
voice of
eventually
God.
I was reading higher Road to Serfdom.
Yeah.
I had kind of an aha moment. I said, there's a lot of good and evil.
Right.
By what standard are they saying something that's good? So it brought me back to my Christianity. Because, you know, it's all about the idea of how Southern Missouri will swallow society, will envelop it, what happens in steps. At the time, there's truth claims being made. By what standard do we consider this?
How did you figure that out?
I might have watched one of your videos. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I do remember, though, to think to myself, libertarian economics is not enough. I want to go deeper.
Yeah, look, I made exactly the same conclusion when I was studying political science in university. The first year or two was okay, because we were reading great ancient thinkers. But then, in my third and fourth years, we studied scholarly study. Basically, human beings are motivated economically. Actually, no, that's not right. That's not right.
Correct.
There's a foundational,
There's a substructure.
that's why I started.
That's where I started to take it. It's been, I take my faith very seriously. I love your biblical series. I see the series and your gospel series. It's great. You deserve a lot of credit for that. And it's been phenomenal.
David Wire types deserve a lot of credit for that too, because they took a big risk.
Yeah, but you had the initiative to bring everybody together. And you did a great job with it. You presented it in a way that I've never. You have a very unique psychological understanding and interpretation of
Yeah, well, we had great panelists too.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
novels. And so what ends up happening is, as I start to pursue the scriptures more and take it seriously, remember back to our timeline, simultaneously the woke stuff all of a sudden reared its head, which is a manifestation of the spiritual. So almost, I was in this place in 2018, 2019, when it was almost peak woke. We weren't there yet. 2020 was peak woke, where I was starting to understand what was really going on. That this was a manifestation of a spiritual self. That,
Yeah, it's foundation. Well, the postmodernists made that claim, so did the Marxists. It's like, no, we're going all the way to the bottom and uprooting everything.
they want to go back to what happened in the garden.
The God of Thunder!
This is real firepower!
Challenge every truism of the West. I mean, you talk
You can take the right to establish a moral order to yourself. The one thing that's claimed, there's many axiomatic claims in Genesis. The word is the creative force that brings good out of chaos and possibility. That human beings don't, men and women exist as independent entities in the being. And that you're not to take the right to establish the moral order for yourself. It's the one prohibition.
That's better.
And I think biologically it's something like,
You'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner.
fundamentally you have to adapt yourself to the reality of something. You don't have the wherewithal. This is where Nietzsche got to hurt. Because Nietzsche said, after the pronouncement that God had died, that human beings would have to create their own
He
values.
said with lament.
Yeah, he did.
Which
He did.
people
Yes.
must remember.
But then he felt that creating our own values was the pathway out, and it's not. The pathway out is a return to
Yes.
the foundational values.
I do the right
And the
thing,
more
unless the
intense
wrong
the
thing
crisis,
is more fun.
the more toward the middle of the foundation you have to look. So it's not political, because this isn't a political crisis. It's truly the, what
30
say,
seconds
it's the
before you
ragged
attack.
edge of the
Get ready.
anti-Christian revolution. That's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
But the hopeful part to kind of bring this all
yeah,
together
yeah.
is that we are seeing young men especially want to return to our roots.
Yeah.
They want to, so that goes back to the conservative element. What are we conserving? In some ways, we're actually trying to rebirth. We're trying to have a new birth of freedom, as Abraham Lincoln would say.
Freedom and
The battle starts in
responsibility.
Yes,
five,
you can't have one without the other.
No, and probably the right
two,
emphasis
one.
is responsibility.
All
Remember,
you need to do
when
is capture the mission
God
area.
tells Moses
Got
to
it?
stand up against the Pharaoh. What he says, he doesn't say, tell them, let my people go. That's what the Civil Rights Crusaders focused on. That isn't what he said. He said, let my people go so they may worship me in the wilderness. Ordered freedom.
Yes.
Ordered freedom is and you see, what you're seeing, and let's close this, because I want your insights. What you're seeing in those working class
Tremble before power!
more and more popular, as you said, as advertising. They're looking for scenes. They're looking for responsible direction.
Correct.
Okay, so now tell me how you've had to modify the manner in which you're conducting these things. Let's say. Because for a while, you would have been testing yourself to see if you could hold your own, and that's sort of an intellectual battle. Shapiro did it very much the same.
Yes, deserves a lot of credit. Yes, correct.
Right? Too bad Milo fell off the edge of the world. He had a pretty rough go.
He had a lot of talent.
He did, and a lot of trauma. A lot. So, okay, so first of all, it's combat, and you're trying to develop yourself, and then you're doing it.
This is real firepower!
What sort of shift has there been in your
I'll patch you up.
self-conceptualization?
Born
your
again!
understanding of your position, the way that you conduct yourself?
Fucking hurt.
Like you see, you're being called upon to be a leader, let's say, that's not merely political. That's my understanding of it.
Correct. It's an enormous responsibility.
You're ready for
Enormous.
action.
I mean, when I show up at the college campus after college campus, mind you, during the day, they have got a million other things they can do. It's 12 p.m. lunchtime, and 4,000 people are waiting for you to go debate.
And what are they on? They're on the campus grounds? Where?
Yeah, sometimes amphitheaters, they're also trees, they're up in the cities, and they can supply them to you if you want to.
Yeah, we do that.
It's superimposed on it.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
And I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, they're as far as the eye can see. And part of it, we must be honest, is they want to see a good verbal combat because they don't get it at university. You see,
Right.
They're not. There's something
That's
just.
partly likely part of the pathological feminization.
Yes, without
No competition.
But you think about it, what I am doing is hyper-masking, which is no rules except, hey, we're just going to go basically figure this out. This is the closest thing to a verbal street fight.
Us against the world.
Anyone who goes to the mic, prove me wrong. I have no notes. I have no AI. I have nothing. Tell me why it's wrong. For 3 hours, I will sit there and everyone will. It's a gladiatorial match for the best ideas of the West.
Right.
And there's something there that is
We'll have to keep
remarkably
fighting until
alluring.
we have a winner.
But for me, I also need to balance, as Christ would say, being as much truth, which of course I'm inclined towards, as love. A lot of these kids are struggling.
Sure. Well, this is the guy that you just talked to. Yeah, so he was radically anti-Semitic, but also
The god of thunder!
very, very falls into this sort of snake pit of conspiratorial theories.
And the brain.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
He would be very happy if he'd listen to you to the degree that he could, because he had tilted pretty hard towards
Things are gonna be different
paranoia.
this time.
And that's very difficult to escape from once
This
it's
is a
established.
nice
But he was
spot.
trying to listen to you, and I thought you did a very good job of
Your team's capture progress has passed the halfway
playing
point.
easy tricks on him. Like, if he was an easy person just to throw into the eternal fire, so to speak, right?
I'll patch you up.
There was part of him that was trying to find the way. Yeah.
And that's 5 years ago, I was just thrown into the world.
Right.
So now I look at myself as a father of 2 kids, 31 years old, so no longer a colleague of these college kids. I'm not quite a professor, but I have a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more life experience.
This is a nice
So I'm
spot.
trying to be more tender when I see someone that is not overly aggressive. Now, sometimes they say whenever they start insulting me, I'll kind of meet them at their own place and try to make an example.
bad guy. Just what
However,
we need.
that one guy could see that's a very deeply
Born again!
And so, is that a type of guy that I want to just make fun of? I tried to stay kind of a loving conversation. And it's tough, man. Oh, it's tough, because those are unloving ideas that he was espousing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, that's that issue of
Crises
trying to
are
love your
quietly
enemy.
put out.
Okay, so
You
we
have
can
no
maybe we'll
idea.
close with this, a little investigation into what that means.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
It's funny that philosopher Kurt discussed like that, by the way. He wrote 150 years ago, and he was one of the first people who really wrote about anxiety. He was one of the first psychological philosophers. And he regarded himself as rather useless, all things considered. And he wrote a section in one of his books about all the industrialists that were operating in Europe at that time, trying in every possible way to make life easier and easier and more efficient and productive for everyone, which was definitely happening.
I would knit the dimensions back together
Europe was
if it were
rapidly
within my
transforming into
power.
an industrial powerhouse, and he said, someone as useless as him, with an orientation towards being a student who liked to sit and contemplate ideas and talk in cafes and smoke cigars and drink, could never do anything,
There is
make
only
anything
one
easier for anyone,
sorcerer
and everyone was already trying to make it, and so he thought that his task would be to make things more difficult for people, because there would come a time when what people wanted wasn't more ease, but
30 seconds before you
more
attack.
challenge,
Get
more
ready.
difficulty, and that's really smart, you know, and it's witty and it's
How many
true.
of those
And
mystic
one of the
portals
things
of yours
that
can
I've
you
come to
open at once,
understand,
Doctor?
I believe, is that
I'm not sure I feel comfortable
And
divulging
Dostoevsky
that
did
information
this too.
without first understanding why.
it's a great book, very short,
Tiger Division
brilliant,
could use a way
absolutely
to mobilize our agents on a global scale.
compelling,
Almost noticed.
dark read.
The battle starts in 5,
The
4,
confession of a
3,
miserable,
2,
resentful,
1.
murderously
All you need to
genocidal
do is capture the mission area. Got it?
evaluates his own soul, I suppose,
Try
and
raising
confesses
2 superpowered kids.
his
Greetings.
sins. It's also a critique of the idea of utopia
Enemy in front of us.
oriented towards security. Dostoevsky.
Extermination!
This set of ideas that carry
An unseen assist!
Looks like the mission area is yours to capture now.
really objective. I am He said, the thing about people that you don't really understand is that he said fundamentally we're ungrateful and we can curse. That's what distinguished us from the animals. I thought was pretty damn powerful. But he said something very interesting. You know, he said if you set up a utopia so that all people had to do was eat cakes and busy themselves with the continuation of the species.
More powerful
That,
yet.
yeah, right. Russian humor, you know. That
Power beyond sight!
people would just go mad and just break things just for something unexpected. Remarkable to happen, and that we're not built for security and safety, but for something.
My
well, let's
magic is
call it
growing.
Adventure, something like adventure. That's
Mortal pain is no match
you
for
don't
the
want to suffer
Sorcerer
unduly.
Supreme.
That seems reasonable. And you might think, because of that, that really what you want is happiness.
More
but then
powerful
Solzhenitsyn,
yet.
for example, he wrote about what happened
Enemy located.
later compelled under Stalin.
Raise us with victory!
What are you going to do with the jackboots heading down the door at 2 in the morning and hauling you off? You're going to be happy there. And so
Behold the god of thunder!
the waves are always there. And so you're also wonderful, also happiness. Same sort of thing Dostoevsky was
My
bringing up.
magic is growing.
Then you're not prepared to know hell breaks loose. And
all hell,
I have
it will
unfinished
absolutely
Their
business.
team's capture progress has passed the halfway
Great.
point.
through at some point in your life, and you're lucky if it won't be decades.
More powerful yet.
Some of it might be a lot of it. Some of it is damaging. And so it's what floats your boat.
Ionic magic!
You're going to be capsized in a pretty decent way, and so then you might ask yourself, what do you have instead of happiness? It might be more reliable. I do think that adventure is more reliable than happiness.
By the eye of Abraham! How are the odds? Sight! I am strength for battle.
He had a very rich background.
Extra shield! You'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner.
Just sit around
Ionic magic!
field grapes and busy himself with the species. And but you know, God
That's three!
get away, get out of your security, get out of your comfort. Leave your family, leave your community, leave your nation. Go out into the world. And it's
You've
very
captured more
interesting.
than half of the mission
Very
area.
interesting
Keep
story. It's
going!
very interesting to contemplate both the psychological and religious what God is presented as in that book.
Behold the god of thunder!
God is presented as a manifestation of the spirit that calls even the too secure and passive adventure. And then Abraham has a pretty rough time as his adventure. It's
You'll
not
have to
all
keep fighting until we have a winner.
skittles and roses from then
I'm
on.
opening a
Quite the
portal.
contrary. He runs right away into like a conspiracy of elites to steal his wife. He runs into tyranny, runs into starvation. He encounters war. It's like he goes out in the world and he has the whole tragedy of his life.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
But the promise of adventure, and the implication is that if you have a sufficient adventure, then that will not so much protect you from suffering, because perhaps that is impossible, but to justify it. And because you kind of know this in your own life. When you look at your life, you might look back on travails that you've undertaken, you know, and when they've done end-of-life surveys with people and asked them what they regret. And
Pick your hero. Or villain. I'm not judging.
the goal is to have a vision for your life such that, all things considered, that justifies your effort.
Open your eyes.
Okay, so
Reality
then what do you
is
do?
but an illusion.
Then you turn down to the micro routines. It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm aiming for. How does that instantiate itself day to day, week to week, month to month? And that's where something like a schedule can be unbelievably useful. Google Calendar. It's like, make a damn schedule and stick to it. Okay, so what's the rule with the schedule? It's not a bloody prison. That's the
I
first
would
thing that
knit
people
the
do wrong.
dimensions
Is, well, I
back
don't like to
together
follow the
if it were
schedule.
within my
It's like,
power.
well, what kind of schedule are you setting up? Well, I have to do this, then I have to do this,
30
then I have to
seconds
do
before
this.
you attack.
You know, and then I
Get
get to
ready.
play video games, because who wants to do all these things that I have to do? It's like, wrong.
Your soul is
Set the damn
divided.
schedule up so that you have the day you want. That's the trick. It's like, okay, I've got tomorrow. If I was going to set it up so the
Tiger
best
Division is
possible
the
day I
same.
could have,
Think of my mask
practically
like a
speaking,
sunken eye patch.
what would it look like? Well, then you schedule that, and obviously there's a
battle
bit of
starts in
responsibility
5,
that's going to go along with
4,
that, because if you have any
3,
sense,
2,
one of the things that
1.
you're going to insist upon is that at the
All you
end
need
of
to
the
do is
day,
capture the
you're
mission
not in
area.
worse shape
Got
than
it?
you were than at the beginning of the day. Right? That's a stupid day. If you have a bunch of those in a row, you just dig, you dig yourself a hole and then you bury yourself in it. It's like, sorry, that's just not a good strategy. It's a bad strategy. So maybe 20% of your day has
Our
to be
enemies on you.
responsibility.
I am
It's more than that, depending on how far behind you are. But even that, you can ask yourself, okay, well, I've got some responsibilities. I have to get those damn things in. What's the right ratio of responsibility to reward? And you can ask yourself that, just like you negotiate with somebody who's working with you. So, okay, you got to work tomorrow. Okay, so I want you to work tomorrow. You might say, okay, well, what are you going to do for me that makes it likely that I'll work for you? responsibility, and then you play video games for 15 minutes. I don't know, whatever turns your crank, man. But, you know, you have to negotiate with yourself. You not tyrannize yourself. But you're negotiating with someone that you care for, that you would like to be productive and have a good life. And that's how you make the schedule. And you look at the day and think, well, if I had that day, that's good. Great. You know, and you're supportive, so you probably only hit it with about 70% accuracy. But that beats the hell out of zero. Right? And if you hit it even with 50% accuracy, another rule is, well, you need to hit 51%.
By the eye of Agamotto!
Position where things start to move back positively and spiral you up. So that's one way to plan the life you'd like to have. And you do that partly by referring to social norms that more or less rescue the water from the belly of the whale, but the other way you do that is by having a little conversation with yourself.
Doctor is in.
As if you don't really know who you are, because you know what you're like. You won't do what you're told. You won't do what you tell yourself to do. You must have noticed that. It's like you're a bad employee and a worse boss. Both of those work, you know, for you.
By the eye of Agamotto!
You don't do it anyway. You fire yourself. Find someone else to do. But you know, my point is that you have to understand that you're not your own servant, so to speak. You're someone you have to negotiate with. And you're someone that you want to present the opportunity of having a good life to. And that person didn't like themselves very much. So, you know, they're always like cracking the whip and then procrastinating, cracking the whip and then procrastinating. It's like, oh, it's so boring. Such a pathetic way of spending your time. And you know what that was. You probably wasted 6 hours a day. And I think you did an economic calculation like that a while back, right? Your time's probably worth $50 an hour. Something like that. I mean, you're not getting paid that now, but you're young, and so this is investment time, and what you do now is going to multiply its effects in the future. So let's say it's $50 an hour, which is perfectly reasonable. So if you waste 6 hours a day, and you are, then you're wasting about $2,000 a week, or about $100,000 a year. So like, go ahead, but that's what it's costing you every hour, and you need to know what your damn time is worth. So let's say it's not 50 bucks, it's 30.
Get ready.
Whatever. Maybe it's 100. It's somewhere in that range. One of the things you should be asking yourself is, when you spend an hour, was that, well, would have I paid someone 50 bucks to have had that hour? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, maybe you should do something else with your time. And it depends on whether or not you think that your time's worthwhile. But the funny thing about not assuming that is if you assume your time isn't worthwhile, what happens is you don't just sit around sort of randomly in a state of responsibility-less bliss. What you do is you suffer existentially. And so that seems like
everything most decidedly
solution.
does not
So,
happen
okay, so anyways, as far as I can tell, that's how you can improve your conscientiousness. But you actually would like to hit, and even better, here's something else you can think about when you go to your life. You can say, well, I'm kind of pessimistic, you can say, well, we have to negotiate with her, I'd like to walk away not miserable and resentful. Okay, let's go ahead. That's how you negotiate with your wife or your husband. That's a good thing to know. You want to negotiate, don't walk away miserable and resentful. That makes you hostile and work to hurt you. And I would say that's, unless you want to hurt them, then happily return. Unless if you want to exist in a place where you're basically hitting each other in the head repeatedly for 30 years, you go right ahead. But I wouldn't say that that's a particularly good way of living. So you might say, well, the minimal precondition for a successful negotiation is that you don't walk away resentful and angry. And so that's also how you know when you have something to say to someone.
I am strengthened.
Because the rule has to be, you're going to walk away resentful and angry, you've got something to say. Doesn't mean you're right, by the way. But it does mean that you have something to say.
By the eye of Agamotto!
How about we walk away from
Maximum pulse!
Well, why not?
Letting the dark child out,
You got to
I
aim for
see.
something. Could aim for that. You want to negotiate with your boss for a new salary. You might think, okay, I got this damn job. How much would I have to be paid so I'd be so bloody excited to go to work I could hardly stand it? Well, you could at least know what that number is, and then you could go there and say, well, you like to have me around? I've been doing some thinking. I think if you paid me this amount of money, I'd be so thrilled to go to work and hardly increase my wages. And your boss might say, well, you like that.
By the eye of
you all of it. I'll give you 75%, maybe.
Damn it, never fall!
Hey, good deal. Before you can, you know, be some
Doctor
weaselly
is in.
coward and go in there and snivel about how awful your life is and walk away barely able to tolerate the outcome of the negotiation. It's like, I
Yuri's
wouldn't recommend
almost
that.
yours.
And it's funny because I've watched people do this repeated in my clinical practice. We plan all the time because the rule is you're going to come and see me. I'm going to try to help you figure out how to have the life that you want to have. And we're going to think about that strategically. So you're making $50,000 a year right now. Maybe you should be making $150,000 in 3 years. And they think, well, that could happen. Not with that attitude. That's the first thing. It's like, no, that's not going to happen if you don't ask people for the damn money, if you don't look for a better job, but they're going to come along and just shovel a boat full of money at you. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. But why is that impossible? Look at you people in here. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? Nothing. You probably have what you want. If you could figure out what the hell it was, and then, you know, you diligently pursued it. So, and then maybe you wouldn't whine about being alive. That'd be good because people who whine about being alive are dangerous to themselves and other people. So you might think, I can have what I want, but you better well figure out what it is. And you can't just wait for the, like, have what you want fairy to show up at your doorstep and grant it, because obviously that's not going to happen. So
You'll need a top-notch team to win this one.
Conscientiousness. Well, we talked about how you could improve that. Social networking. That's another big deal. It's one of the advantages that older people have over younger people.
Open your eyes.
And so,
Reality
for example,
is but
now
an
that I'm in my
illusion.
50s, roughly speaking, I know a bunch of other people who are, you know, relatively well positioned in the dominance hierarchy, and they know all sorts of people. And so when I go to one of them and say, you know, can you do X or do you know X? They say no, but I know something. So, motivation seems to me to be the initial framing process. And you come into the world with the motivational systems running.
Magic is not
ready
to be
for it.
owned, but
Babies
to be
are hungry.
felt,
Babies get
experienced,
cold. Babies want something to
lived.
drink. You know, so the world already comes
30 seconds
in
before
some
you
sense.
attack.
They come
Get
into the
ready.
world with pre-packaged categories for existence, and those are the categories that are going to aid their survival. And you know, they're not simple either. It's not so simple. It's well, hunger, thirst, pleasure, pain, anxiety. You know, the classic sort of, and the classic emotions, sadness, joy, and so forth. Those systems are already there, but babies have more
battle starts in
complicated systems
5,
too, like the
4,
system for exploration is
3,
already in place, and the
2,
system for play,
1.
which is really complicated. It's already
Our
in
enemies
place.
are
So,
near.
you know, you come
Good
into the
medicine.
world with a human
What do
nature,
they like?
and
These
the
other
nature
worlds
seems to
where
be created
I
because of subsystems. That's
You need
one
to
of
stop that vehicle in its tracks.
It's also useful to think about the operations of those subsystems as something like to think about them as games, with the name, to think about them as stories, to think about them as frames of reference, to think about them as action patterns, all of this, and to think about them as sub-personalities that they actually think to be the best in the person. Because if you're hungry, it's not like you're filling it with drive. It's a sub-personality that has a goal, and then it has a bunch of action patterns that are going to be ways in reference to that goal. It has a bunch of perceptions that you think that goal, and it organizes your emotional responses around that. And so to think about it as a personality it's a much more intelligent way to look at it. One of the things about Skinner's rats, you know, Skinner could get rats to do almost everything. He would reward them with food. And so he had a simple rat model, but his rats were starved down to 75% of their normal body weight. So not only were they not social, but various rats like rats are, to be isolated. They're genetically altered from wild rats. But they also weren't as complex as the real rats because they were starved. But what are you aiming at? It's a pretty good model of a rat, and a rat is a pretty good model of a person. But a lot of our models in simple behavior are based on starving, isolated rats. So, anyways, how to think about motivation? We think about it from the hypothalamic perspective. So we could say one thing that motivation does is set goals. We could say that emotions track progress
Mystic
towards
arts won't
goals.
fail me again.
And I'm going to use that schema, even though it's not exactly right. So you say, well, motivation determines where you're going to aim. So if you're hungry, you're going to aim at something to eat. And then that will organize your perceptions so that you zero out everything that isn't relevant to that task,
I'm opening
which
a
is almost
portal.
everything. You concentrate on those few things that are going to facilitate your moving forward. When you encounter those things, that produces positive emotion. As you move through the world towards your goal, and you see that things are laying themselves out, that facilitates your moving forward. Those things cause positive emotion. And if you encounter anything that gets in the way, then that produces negative emotion. Anger, so that you move away, frustration, disappointment, grief, those would, if you have a response that serious to an obstacle, it would probably punish the little motivated frame right out of existence. You know, so you walk downstairs and, I don't know, the contracting company has set a wrecking ball through your kitchen. It's like,
The
that's
Sorcerer
going to be
Supreme
disappointing.
lives
You're not
once
going to keep
more.
eating the peanut butter sandwich in the rubble. That little frame is going to get punished out of existence, and some new goal is going to pop up instead. And, you know, one of the things we're going to try to sort out is how do you decide when you've encountered an obstacle that's so big that you should just switch it over to something else? Because that's not obvious.
I am strength. By the eye of Agamotto!
Your hypothalamus pops up micro goals that are directly relevant to biological survival. That produces a frame of reference. So it's not a goal, it's not a drive, and it's not a collection of behaviors. It's a little personality. And the personality has a viewpoint, it has thoughts that go along with it.
Now might be a
It has
good time to stop
perceptions,
them.
it has action tendencies, all of that. You can see this in addiction.
The multiverse
Most
offers
particularly.
endless possibilities.
So one of the things that you
Only
find
survives
often
this
with people who are alcoholic is they lie all the time. And that's because when they built a little alcohol-dependent personality inside of themselves, or a big one, maybe it's 90% of their personality. And one of the things that consists of is all the rationalizations that they've used over the years to justify their addiction to themselves and to other people. And so the addiction has a personality. You know, so when the person is off, well, maybe they're addicted to meth or something like that, where, you know, the addiction is more, it's more short-term powerful than I would say than an alcohol addiction. They'll say anything. And the words are just tools used to get towards the goal. And if they happen to be deceptive, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're just practical tools to get towards the goal. And then when you get towards the goal, you take a nice step against the world. You reinforce all those
Maximum pulse!
What are you aiming at? So, okay, so we're going to say motivation. One way to think about it is they set goals. It's not the right way of thinking about it. They produce a whole framework of interpretation. And so we're going to think about that framework of interpretation. And then emotions emerge inside of that.
My fate is
So that's it. So the world is framed, motivation set goals. You could say the world has to be framed. So motivation sets that frame. Goals, emotions, perceptions, and actions. And then actions attract thought.
shield.
Emotion says,
I disappear.
and if you encounter something you don't expect, you stop. That's anxiety. Oh, we're not where we thought we were. And so we don't know what to do. So we should stop because we don't know where we are or what we're doing. Stop, frozen. And then more powerful negative emotions like fear, they might make you get out of it.
Now might be a good time to stop them.
Emotions, forward, stop, reverse. That's your emotions within that.
The moon haunts you!
And that's another example of how your mind is embedded in your body. Emotions are like they're offshoots of action tendencies. That's the right way to think about it. Because action is everything. So what are some basic motivations? Most of these are regulated by the hypothalamus. That tells you just how important it's for us. The other thing that's useful to know about the hypothalamus is that it has projections going up from it, so they're like tree trunks, and inhibitory projections coming down the road. So you can kind of control your hypothalamus as long as it's not on too much. But if it's on in any serious way, it's like it will. So partly what you do to stop yourself from falling into the dominion of your hypothalamus is to never ever be anywhere where its action is necessary. Right? You don't want to go to a hypothalamus because you might find yourself in a situation where panicked defensive aggression is immediately necessary. You probably don't want that. You don't want the panic. You don't want the terror. You don't want the frenzied fights. You don't want any of that. You don't want to have to run away in absolute panic. So you just don't go there. And
What are you aiming at?
a huge part of how we are evolved is just by never going anywhere where we have to experience it. And so that has very little to do with internal inhibitory control and everything to do with staying where you belong. So basic motivations. Hunger, thirst, pain. Pain is not regulated by cortisol. That's a different circuit. Anger/aggression. Thermoregulation. Panic and escape. Affiliation with kill. Sexual desire. Exploration. Play. And you can kind of break those in. You can kind of break those into classic Darwinian patterns. Set of motivations that go along with self-maintenance. That'd be your survival. Ingestion and rejection.
I disappear.
Coded them
Your
there.
shields. Getting stronger already.
The self-maintenance.
Been dealt with.
There's an ingestive set of basic motivations that go with self-maintenance. So that's hunger, thirst. There's a set of defensive thermoregulation, panic and escape. And then there's motivations that are associated with reproduction, affiliation, care,
My work here is
sexual
not done.
desire. And then I put exploration and play sort of outside of that.
Maximum pulse!
I would say that those two things serve both of these approximately equally. So what I try to do is take the basic motivations and then nest them inside a fundamental Darwinian framework so that you can see how the biological process of evolution has manifested itself and is differentiated into these fundamental biological systems. Okay, so this is a rat brain, flat now. So it's basically what we see of a rat brain, flattened it out, and then made it two-dimensional. And you can see here, so this is the hypothalamus. And you can see that it's made out of these different nuclei, that's what they're called. And they sort of the shapes that I showed you in the human earlier. You see that there's different systems, specific breathing and drinking is outlined in green. And the reproductive system is two of them, and they're outlined in red. Yeah, reproductive is red, and the defensive ones are in the green.
The moon!
You can think about this as the three fundamental value systems of living creatures with complex nervous systems as far as the hypothalamus is concerned. And then, given what I told you about the hypothalamus, which is you hardly need the rest of your brain at all. As long as you have a hypothalamus, those things are really fundamental to balance.
Against the world!
Now, you might think, you only need the damn hypothalamus. Why bother with the rest of the brain at all? It's a very useful question, especially because most creatures don't have much of the brain. So, but it seems to be something like, we've got to but the problem is that
make the same
those
mistakes
things,
again.
first of all, can conflict. You know, are you too hungry to sleep or too sleepy to eat? That's a pretty simple kind of contradiction, you know. Are you more angry at your partner or do you want sexual relations more? So they can conflict in the present, but then they can conflict with other people doing the same thing, and they can conflict with the moon. So part of the reason you need the rest of your brain is to solve the problems that emerge from the solutions that the hypothalamus thought. So because you don't want to just eat and drink and reproduce and defend yourself. You want to eat
Maximum pulse!
later, tomorrow, next week, next month, while you're able to engage in reproductive activity and defend yourself in multiple contexts with a whole bunch of people for as long as you can possibly manage. And so you need the rest of your brain to help you do that. And so what the rest of your brain has to do, roughly speaking, is regulate and also elaborate up into something that's integrated inside you, which might roughly be your personality, and then so that personality is integrated with the personality of other people. And so you can think about it as an emergent process. This is one of the things I really liked about Piaget. He's so damn smart because Piaget is the only thinker I know, really, who really addressed the problem of the evolution of value systems. Like, he never nailed it down to the physiology. There wasn't enough known about physiology when he did his work, but it maps really nicely onto the physiology. But, you know, he said, well, but he got it right anyways. He said, you come into the world with a handful of pre-established reflexes. Okay, we're going to complicate that up a bit.
You'll need a top-notch
you come
team
into
to
the
win
world
this
with a
one.
handful of micro-personalities that are centered around these fundamental motivational
You
action.
don't have to be a witch to find
And
the
then
magic
that gets
in
you
this world.
started.
But it does help.
And that has motor output as well as perceptions and all of that that's associated.
So when you know, if you watch yourself, you say, well, I had a particularly good day at work. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you lost your sense of time. Right? Because when you're having not a good day at work, it's like, first it's 1
30
minute
seconds
to
before you
3,
attack.
and then it's
Get ready.
45 seconds to 3, and then it's 30 seconds. That's what school was like for me. It was like, click. It's so funny, you know. I went to my daughter's school. I used to get in trouble for talking all the time. Surprise, surprise. When I was a kid, and
The
I
battle
was
starts
bored
in
stiff
5,
in school,
4,
and
3,
so I would
2,
misbehave on occasion.
1.
Out of
You
pure
have to
boredom.
stop them from securing the mission area.
1 years ago, I went to my daughter's school to sit for a class. And the teacher had all the kids on the
Need
floor.
assistance.
He was having
That's been
some of the kids read to them.
sorcerer supreme.
They really couldn't read at all. And I had exactly the same experience. Sitting there, it was like being 7 years old. And I thought, you know, if I were to go out for 3 days, misbehave, 40 years old, I would misbehave exactly like I did when I was 6. Well, that's the place to be. You don't want to be in a place that's stultifying. You don't want to be in a place where there's no challenge. You might even quit the job if there's no challenge.
You're not going anywhere.
Give you security.
The real magic happens when we work together. That's been sensible.
Because that's what you're built for. You're built to take on a maximum load. That's what strength is. You need to be strong because life is extraordinarily difficult. And because the evil king is always wiggling away at the structure of the state. And you have to be awake and sharp to stop that from happening so that you don't become corrupt. And so that your family
I disappeared.
become corrupt. You have to have your eyes open, your lips sharp, and your words at the ready. You have to be educated. You have to know about it. You have to think and you have to read. You have to speak. You have to know how to aim. You have to be willing to voice the troubles of the world up on your shoulders. What's so
My work
interesting
here is
about
not
that, so
done.
remarkable, and this is something that's really manifested itself to me as I've been doing these public lectures. I've been talking about responsibility to people, which doesn't seem to happen very often anymore, and the audiences are dead quiet, and I lay out this idea that life is headed our way by malevolence. Everyone says, yeah, well, we always suspected that. No one's ever said it quite so bluntly.
You need to stop that vehicle in
Here,
tracks.
I'm not the only person who has those suspicions. And then the second part of that is the better part, and it's despite life is shaped by malevolence at every level of existence. There's something about the human spirit that can thrive under precisely these conditions if we allow that to occur. Because as difficult as life is, and as horrible as we are, our capacity to deal with that catastrophe and to transcend that malevolent spirit is more powerful than that reality itself. And that's the fundamental issue. I think that's the fundamental issue of the Judeo-Christian ethic, with its emphasis on the divinity of the individual. As catastrophic as life is, as malevolent as people can be, and that's malevolent beyond belief, fundamental. The person has in spirit the
My
nobility
goodbye.
to set that right and defeat evil. And that more than that, the antidote to the catastrophe
That's
is to take on exactly that responsibility. There isn't anything so bad that we can't make it worse. But I have it within me to decide that I I'm going to stand up against that. I'm going to strive to make the world a better place. I'm going to strive to strain our
You
level.
brought this on yourself.
Set my family straight. Work.
Born again! Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man of Thunder!
I will take a shield.
All of that voluntarily. Just to stand up straight, by the way, with your shoulders
My
back.
work here
to
is
take
not-
on that, all that
Be right
voluntarily. As soon as you make that decision, then all the catastrophe justifies itself in the nobility of your striving. And that
Better stop that vehicle!
Okay, so the question is, why do people pursue those who don't make this resonate? They don't have it while you are. So Pleasure Island, it's a good example. Those kids that were brought there were lost. So they didn't have anywhere to go. They didn't have an identity. So they default to local pleasure.
Feeling stronger already.
And that's better than none. Although the problem with local pleasure, as the narrative made clear, is that you better look out, it's very impulsive, because it's going to kick back on you hard. And the reason is, you're only considering the immediate time frame. And the problem is that in the problem is something works really well. This set tenable solution to the class of all problems.
You are nothing!
Pursue local pleasure because that's the best they can imagine. So to be ignorant, it can be they don't want to adopt the responsibility because part of the problem with working at every level of the hierarchy simultaneously is that it's like dancing to a very complex waltz, let's say. You have to be paying attention to a very large number of things simultaneously and doing things right. It requires responsibility. And so...
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
It's a pain. It's a weight. Part of the reason people drink alcohol is to get rid of their responsibility. I mean, that's, you know,
foes have
you
found
hear
us.
people drink because they
Better
have
stop that
problems.
vehicle!
You know, some people drink because they're anxious, and alcoholics drink because they're in withdrawal. But young people drink because they're sick and tired of being responsible, because it's annoying. Like, so I'll drink enough, I won't care about the long-term consequences, because alcohol, that's what alcohol
This was
but it makes you
inevitable.
not care. And partly it's because it dampens anxiety. So it dampens anxiety, it leaves you
Born again!
so then you can go out there and do stupid, fun things. And that's a part of it.
You're not going anywhere.
Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Extermination! It's risky. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's risky. Yeah, they don't know better. That's the answer, I would say. Your unconscious value structure determine the direction and content of your perception. So it's built into the way you move your eyes. Because you tend to look at things you value, or at things you're afraid of. Like you look at things with valence, and part of the decision about what has value is dependent on the implicit structure of your moral system, your morality. And that's being partly a conscious structure, partly something you've been picked up by interacting with people like mad ever since you were born. You don't know all the rules any more than you get cricket. You just don't. You can't. It's too complicated. But you act them out. And then you also get how people act in your imagination. Dreams are, that's what a dream is. That's what a fantasy is. That's what that little movie that plays inside your head when you remember what you did.
Already.
And you only remember the gist, you know? So even the imagistic representation of your behavior episodic memory, it's already selecting and molding and turning it into a relatable story. It can't help but do that. It's the only way you can represent it. And so you don't know how you do that or why you do that, but part of it's governed by this implicit morality that's part of your procedural memory system, part of the way you act and part of the way you move your eyes and listen to things and focus on it. That's all being instantiated inside of you. And that's social biology, also a social project that you continue to do. You remember, it informs what you imagine. It informs what you collectively imagine. It informs what you can collectively understand.
And partly what you're doing while you become conscious of this is to map implicit structures that already constitute you from society into explicit representation. That's what self-understanding means. And you know, when you have that moment of insight about something you've done, it's like you're watching this repetitive behavior that you've manifested, probably that got you in trouble. You know, it's your characteristic way of falling accidentally into chaos, and you talk about it, your problems, you talk about them with your friends, you talk about them, maybe you have dreams about them, and you're trying to relate them, and you have memories about them that you can't get rid of because they're negatively toned, so you talk about them, and then someone comes up with a little statement.
You'll need a top-notch team to win this one.
You don't have to be a witch to find the magic in this world, but it does help.
Escape pod ready. Opening escape capsule.
I may be powered by chaos, but I'm trying to bring a bit of order to the universe.
30 seconds before you attack. Get ready. You might want to stand back, Spidey. Things are about to get pretty chilly.
I used to hang with Iceman back in the day. I'm cool.
Oh, sounds like you have some pretty amazing friends.
Yeah, I guess I do. But I'm always looking for more. Glad to add you to the list.
The battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All you need to do is capture the mission area. Got it?
I'm hit! Cover me! Feeling stronger already. You're not going anywhere! Chaos control!
A nice deep place.
Now, disappearing. Back up here!
You'll support.
Love that cake! What's your step? Finding our friend. Have fun! Run, have fun!
Help get that vehicle to its destination.
By his own essence, the irony.
Cover me! Shot to the side! I disappear. You're not going anywhere! Feeling stronger already.
A nice deep freeze. You're halfway there. Keep going.
Your god is suffering.
Release the Glowdrop! Reborn from the chaos. Goodbye for now.
Get that vehicle moving again. There they are.
I'm hit. We must get this essence beneath the surface. You're not going anywhere.
Hope I make the cut! Us against the world!
It's the grand finale.
Shall ascend to the throne this day.
Now, a disappearance.
I like the cold.
Watch out, they're heading our way!
Damn it, stay! Scarlet Witch.
Love that healing feeling.
My work here is not done.
Get that vehicle moving again!
The False King must not ascend. Your fate is sealed. Be right there. Come closer. I can hear it. The fox knows when to fall. Goodbye.
Hope I make the cut!
We must deliver no feeling stronger already.
Get that vehicle moving again!
You get a weapon! You get a weapon! You get a weapon!
All those crises I quietly put out, you have no idea.
A feast for my crows!
I am Groot!
So exposed. Whoa! When did Hot Topic get its own planet? They got behind you.
I am
Almost there! Don't turn back now!
The Sorcerer Supreme lives once more.
Hey, team! Enjoy the amplifier!
Get that vehicle moving again!
Scratch my back.
Only 60 seconds left!
By the eye of Agamotto! By the shades of the Seraphim, I'm opening a portal.
Final 10 seconds!
A shortcut through space. Good medicine.
Keep fighting! can't expect to